You're listening to Play Transform Better. This is where we help business leaders navigate transformation, technology, and change at scale. In this executive shift, we go beneath the surface of stalled strategies and explore a hidden challenge: the quiet burnout that comes with pushing hard and getting nowhere. Now let's join your host.
Welcome to this deep dive. We're looking at a challenge many of you leading organizations, well, you know it all too well. That powerful internal resistance to progress, what we call corporate inertia.
Right.
Think of it almost like organizational gravity.
Right.
It keeps things moving on the same path, even when you know a change is needed.
Yeah, like trying to turn a huge ship, isn't it? That momentum is incredibly strong.
Exactly. And this resistance, it can be a huge source of frustration for leaders.
Oh, absolutely. For executives trying to steer towards the future, inertia can feel less like an obstacle and more like, well, hitting a brick wall sometimes.
Yeah.
There's this real tension, often unspoken, between the strategy you know is right and the organization's seeming inability to just get moving.
We see this play out all the time. Think about Sarah. We heard about her, a COO at a pretty traditional retail company.
Yeah.
She had a solid plan, whole e-commerce strategy to modernize things, a clear roadmap.
Sounds necessary.
Totally. But at every step, friction, middle management, they were worried about automation, jobs.
Understandable fears, I suppose.
Sure, but it slowed things down. And then the board, they were hesitant about the investment needed. Focus maybe more short-term.
Ah, the classic investment hurdle.
Right. So despite her vision, her pushing, progress was just glacial. And you could see her drive turning into, well, real frustration, feeling like it was almost futile.
Sarah's story really hits home, I think. It captures that common leadership struggle perfectly. The vision's clear, the why is compelling, but the organization just moves so slowly, bogged down by old habits, maybe anxieties.
So our mission today really is to dig into the roots of that executive frustration you might be feeling and look at some ways to actually address this inertia.
Let's do it. Where should we start?
Okay, let's think about the personal impact first. Constantly pushing, hitting those headwinds, seeing good ideas stall. I mean, that's got to be draining.
Oh, incredibly so. It leads to what you could call emotional fatigue.
Emotional fatigue.
Precisely. This constant struggle, the inability to really translate that strategic idea into action on the ground.
Yeah.
It just wears you down. The endless justifications, the slow pace, feeling like you're always swimming upstream. It erodes your energy, your enthusiasm. And over time, that can definitely lead towards burnout, maybe even feeling disconnected from why you started in the first place.
And it's not just feeling tired, is it? There are studies on this.
There are, actually. Some research points to a pretty strong link between how much inertia leaders perceive in their organization and their own stress levels. It's a tangible impact.
Wow. And it really throws that gap into sharp relief, doesn't it? The gap between the vision at the top and the organization's actual ability to execute on it.
Yeah.
The message just isn't landing or getting traction.
Exactly right. That's the vision execution gap we often talk about. Good strategies, ones designed for future success, they just get diluted or stuck. Well, stuck in those ingrained processes, maybe an aversion to risk or just, everyone being comfortable with the way things are.
The we've always done it this way problem.
That's the one. Remember Innovotech's initial situation. Leadership saw the tech shifts, knew they needed to innovate.
No.
But that always done it this way, culture was like hitting the brakes hard.
It's interesting you mentioned behavioral economics earlier. Loss aversion.
Yeah, that plays a role, I think. Loss aversion suggests people and organizations are made of people often feel the potential pain of change much more strongly than the potential gain.
So staying put feels safer, even if it's not logical long term.
Exactly. It reinforces sticking with the status quo.
Something else strikes me. This constant battle, it must feel incredibly lonely for an executive.
That's a really important point. Isolation.
Yeah. If you're the one pushing and you're met with resistance from all sides, maybe you feel like you're the only one seeing it.
That feeling of isolation is significant, and we probably don't talk about it enough. When you repeatedly face that pushback on changes, are necessary, it really can make you feel alone in seeing the urgency.
And that just adds to the frustration.
It absolutely amplifies it, makes it even harder to keep pushing, to keep that conviction. It really begs the question for leaders.
Yeah.
How are you actively building your support network, your coalition for change?
Good question. So, Inertia isn't always loud opposition. What are some of the quieter signs, the early warnings?
That's key, spotting it early. And you're right, it's often subtle.
Like what?
Well, maybe decision-making gets really slow. Lots of meetings, endless rounds, but no clear outcome or action.
Okay, I recognize that one.
Or a lack of real urgency when a new opportunity pops up. Hesitation, not jumping on things.
Right. Analysis paralysis sometimes.
Could be. Also, watch out for relying too heavily on past glories, that what worked before will work again, thinking.
Even if the world has completely changed outside.
Exactly. And underneath all that is often just a basic fear of the unknown. People prefer the comfort of the familiar, even if it's not really working anymore.
Those are really good flags to watch for. Recognizing them early seems crucial then.
It is.
So if you start seeing these signs, what are the first steps? How do you start tackling it?
Well, early detection is step one, for sure. But it's not just about spotting the resistance.
Okay.
It's about digging deeper, understanding the why behind it. What are the anxieties, the fears? What beliefs are holding people back?
So get to the root cause.
Yes. Addressing that is much more effective in the long run than just trying to force change from the top.
Which leads us, I guess, to communication. Fostering open communication. Sounds basic, maybe.
It sounds basic, but it's absolutely fundamental, and often harder than it sounds to do well.
How so?
Creating a genuinely safe space where people feel they can speak up, voice concerns, ask tough questions, even float different ideas without worrying about, negative consequences.
That takes trust.
It takes a lot of trust. But when you have that, the issues fueling the inertia start to surface naturally.
And change becomes less of a top-down thing.
Exactly. It becomes more collaborative, people feel heard, valued, and they're more likely to buy into the change, even participate in shaping it. It's amazing how often leaders just don't listen enough.
That Innovotech story you mentioned had a turnaround, right? It wasn't always stuck.
Yes, the alternative scenario there is quite telling.
Yeah.
Instead of just letting the inertia win,
Yeah.
the CEO took a proactive approach, started holding town halls, but the key wasn't just talking at people.
It was listening.
Active listening, acknowledging the fears about jobs, about disruption, being upfront about the risks of not changing.
So building trust and explaining the why clearly.
Yes,
Yeah.
building that buy-in from the ground up. And another smart move they made,
What was that?
identifying and really engaging key influencers within the company. Those respected people, often not in top management, who others listen to and who might be more open to new ideas.
Journal champion.
Precisely. Getting them on board helped shift the whole mindset. The result was this renewed sense of purpose, not just in leadership, but spreading through the company.
So it sounds like there's no magic bullet for inertia.
Definitely not.
It's more about consistent effort, understanding the resistance, opening dialogue, building that shared need for change.
That's it, exactly. It's a journey, absolutely. And the frustration leaders feel, it's real, it's valid, it's a response to a tough challenge.
But not impossible to overcome.
Not at all. It's not insurmountable. But focusing on that early awareness, spotting the signs, and actively working on open communication, that's the foundation.
So first steps, spot the signs, open the dialogue, move it from just resistance to a conversation about the future.
Yes. Progress really comes from that ongoing work, engaging teams, tackling concerns head on, shaping that vision together. It takes patience, definitely.
And resilience.
And resilience, yes. And just being willing to constantly question the status quo.
Okay, so on that note, maybe a final thought for our listeners to reflect on. That frustration you might be feeling about corporate inertia. Maybe it's not a sign you're failing. Maybe it's actually a signal that a different approach is needed.
A catalyst.
Right. So consider this. What's one small, consistent step you could take this week? Something to open up a new line of communication in your organization.
Could be anything, really.
Maybe a dedicated listening session. Sharing the why behind a strategy more transparently. Or just being more visible, more available for those informal chats.
Small steps can make a difference.
Think about how you can start turning that frustration into fuel. Fuel for positive change. Because look, both you and your business deserve to move forward with confidence and with purpose.